My name is Arya Singla, and today I'm going to be presenting upon how we can innovate agriculture in response to food insecurity. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a rising sophomore at Walton High School in Marietta, Georgia. I'm passionate about global health, specifically food sciences and oncology. For my extracurriculars, I'm involved in and am an officer on my school's Science Olympiad team. I'm a Girl Scout of Greater Atlanta, currently working on my Gold Award, and I'm a violinist in my school's orchestra as well as a member on my school's orchestra leadership team. In the future, I hope to pursue a career in oncology as well. So, what is food insecurity? Food insecurity can be defined as having a lack of these four characteristics: availability, addressing supply and is determined by food production, stock levels, and net trade; access, having an adequate amount of nutritious food in addition to it being accessible; utilization, how the body uses nutrients from food, influenced by care, feeding practices, preparation, diet diversity, and household distribution; as well as stability, having inadequate access to food on a periodic basis and risking deterioration in nutritional status, can also be defined as food insecurity. On a global scale, having food security is very important for a variety of reasons. For starters, having enough nutritious food promotes a healthier individual, providing nutrients needed to thrive. Food insecurity can also be a problem in children as it can affect their growth and development. Economically, food security is essential for economic development. When people have reliable access to nutritious food, they are healthier and more productive, which contributes to economic stability and growth. In contrast, food insecurity can lead to reduced labor productivity and increased healthcare costs, hindering economic progress. There are many challenges that are faced with ensuring food security, and each point on this graphic, from the initial crop to the consumer, symbolizes a different pressure point that can contribute to food insecurity. For instance, climate change, where rising temperatures are making it harder for crops to survive droughts and lesser amounts of resources. Inflation, where the cost of product rises, sometimes so much so it makes it difficult for those in low income areas to afford fresh fruits and vegetables. Or other things like population growth. With the rising population, the demand for food increases, putting pressure on agricultural systems to produce more food, often leading to the overuse of resources and an inadequate supply of product. Conflict. Conflict can disrupt food production and distribution. Wars and political instability can lead to displacement, loss of farmland, and interruption of supply chains, making food scarce and expensive. Disease. Plant disease can affect crop production heavily, while human disease can impact labor forces needed for agricultural production. Economic shocks. Economic downturns or crises can reduce people's purchasing power and access to food. This includes job losses and decreased income, which makes it harder for families to buy a sufficient amount of food. And lastly, urbanization, where more and more farmland is being used to urbanize an area, putting pressure on agricultural workers to maximize yield in the smaller spaces they have. This is a multidimensional issue that requires a comprehensive solution. The solution would have to involve everyone, from politicians to engineers, botanists, teachers, and beyond. I want to talk today about how we can help local farmers maximize efficiency in response to specifically the climate. If we can grow high quality, nutrient rich food, we might be able to target food insecurity in specific areas, starting with tackling the issue of nutrient deterioration. A 2004 US study found that important nutrients in some garden crops are up to 38% lower than in the 20th century. On average, across the 43 vegetables analyzed in this study, some of the biggest changes include the calcium content that declined by 16%, iron by 15%, and phosphorus by 9%. The vitamins riboflavin and absorbic acid also dropped significantly as well. Because of the rising demands of better shelf life, higher yield, pesticide protection, etc., of garden crops, it's no surprise that modern day agricultural practices have shown a decline in many nutrients in the past 75 years. Especially in the last 75 years, nutrient deterioration is becoming more and more prevalent in the products we see today. And some of the main issues I wanted to highlight because of nutrient deterioration are things like larger demand, where this large demand puts pressure on the agricultural industry both physically and economically. Things like soil depletion, where intensive agricultural methods have started to diminish nutrients in soil. And even things like chemical use, while the use of items of pesticides, higher amounts of fertilizers, herbicides, etc., has increased by about 1.46% annually from 1948 to 2021. One thing I wanted to highlight about GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, is that using GMOs, we can make products with longer shelf life. We can make crops that grow faster. We can solve these different individual problems, but in doing so, we're only fixing one of the many problems that needs to be addressed. One way to tackle this problem would be to empower local or small farmers and help them easily and efficiently produce higher quality food, which would help elevate their productivity problem. The goal would be to reduce nutrient deterioration by creating a more efficient method to grow crops. The objective would be to create a simplistic yet effective way to reduce the waste of agricultural materials, as well as to allow for higher quality crops to be grown with the need of less materials in the changing climate. This method would use capillary action to pull stored water from a reservoir using a moisture wicking solution made of peat moss, vermiculite, and perlite. In addition, I tested the growth of subarctic planted tomatoes in 6 different pots, each of which representing a different growing technique. The 2 commercial containers represented having no reservoir technology. The 2 commercial self-watering containers represented having little reservoir technology or a natural reservoir. And the 2 newly designed self-watering containers represented having a man-made reservoir. Based on the graph to the right, showing the height results based on the container after the 40-day period, we can see that the homemade self-watering containers have the largest tomato plants in centimeters. Based on the results, we can also see that existing reservoir technology has a minimal impact on plant health and growth. Plants grown in regular containers also developed browning and spotted leaves from both malnutrition and dehydration. By adapting this reservoir method, local farmers would be able to easily grow higher quality nutrient rich crops. There would be less wastage of material, lowering long term costs as well. Implementation would allow for local farmers to be able to not only produce nutritious food, but be able to supply nutritious food to those in food insecure areas. I'd like to thank the Global Health Leaders Conference at Johns Hopkins University for providing me this opportunity to present my work. And I'd also like to thank the World Bank for not only recognizing food insecurity as a global issue, but providing support to those working to address this problem. I'd also like to thank the audience for taking the time and patience to listen to my presentation. Thank you.